The ballroom of the Riverside Hotel hummed with nostalgic laughter and clinking glasses. David Mitchell adjusted his tie, feeling out of place among his wife's college friends. Sarah had been animated all evening, her eyes bright in a way he hadn't seen in months. 20 years of marriage, and he thought he knew every shade of her smile, but this one seemed borrowed from a different life. He excused himself from a conversation about market trends and headed toward the bar, weaving through clusters of middle-aged professionals trying to recapture their youth. That's when he heard her voice, clear and unguarded, floating from behind a decorative column. "Honestly, Lisa, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't married so young." Sarah's laugh was bitter, unfamiliar. 23. "Can you believe it? I barely knew myself, let alone what I wanted from life." David's hand froze halfway to the bartender. His heart performed a sickening lurch. "Don't be so hard on yourself," another woman replied. "Lisa, presumably. You and David seem happy." "We're comfortable," Sarah said, and the word landed like a stone in still water. "That's not the same thing, is it? I see these women here who traveled, who built careers, who took risks. I went straight from my parents' house to being someone's wife. Sometimes I feel like I missed the part where I was supposed to become me." The bartender asked David something, but the words were meaningless static. He turned and walked away, legs moving on autopilot, finding refuge in the hotel's side corridor. The wallpaper's pattern blurred as he stared at it, trying to process what he'd just heard. 20 years. 2 children. A mortgage. Shared dreams, or so he thought. Had it all been built on regret? He remembered their wedding day, Sarah in her mother's altered dress, him in a borrowed suit, both of them so young and certain. They'd married quickly after graduation because waiting seemed pointless when you knew. At least, he'd known. Had she? David pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over their family photo on the lock screen. Sarah's smile looked different now, like a mask he'd never noticed before. "There you are." Sarah's voice made him jump. She appeared around the corner, slightly flushed from wine and conversation. "I've been looking everywhere. You have to meet Professor Chen. He still remembers that paper I wrote on Fitzgerald." She looked happy, genuinely happy, and David realized with cold clarity that he couldn't remember the last time she'd looked at him this way. "Sure," he managed, pocketing his phone. "Lead the way." As they walked back to the ballroom, Sarah's hand found his, their fingers interlocking with practiced ease. The gesture felt different now, more habit than affection, more obligation than desire. The rest of the evening passed in a fog. David smiled at appropriate moments, shook hands, made small talk about their kids and their jobs. But part of him remained in that corridor, replaying Sarah's words on an endless loop. Comfortable isn't the same thing. He watched her across the room, animated in conversation with a silver-haired man he didn't recognize. She threw her head back laughing, touching the man's arm in that casual way of old friends. Something twisted in David's chest. When had they stopped laughing like that? Later, as they drove home in darkness, Sarah chatted about the evening, who had aged well, who had interesting careers, the gossip about divorces and affairs. David made appropriate noises, both hands on the wheel, eyes on the endless white lines of the highway. "You're quiet," Sarah finally observed, her voice soft in the car's cocoon. "Just tired," he lied. "It was nice though, wasn't it? Seeing everyone after so long." David glanced at her profile, illuminated by the dashboard's glow. She looked young again, transported back to a version of herself he'd never met, the Sarah before him, the one who'd had other dreams, other possibilities. "Yeah," he said quietly. It was revealing. If Sarah caught the weight in his words, she didn't show it. She turned up the radio and hummed along to an old song, and David drove them home to the life they'd built, wondering if it had been enough. David couldn't sleep. At 2 in the morning, he lay in the darkness listening to Sarah's steady breathing beside him, feeling the familiar weight of her presence and the new, unsettling distance those overheard words had created. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Probably work. He grabbed it and slipped out to the hallway, closing the bedroom door softly behind him. But it wasn't work. It was a notification from Sarah's tablet. They shared an iCloud account for family photos and calendars. A new Facebook friend request had triggered the alert. Michael Chen. David stared at the name, his pulse quickening. Wasn't that the Professor Sarah had wanted him to meet? But the notification showed it was a friend request, not a professional connection. He opened the tablet, guilt warring with something darker. Sarah's Facebook Messenger was open. The conversation with Michael Chen dated back 3 hours, right around when they'd gotten home. Michael, great seeing you tonight. You haven't changed a bit. Sarah, you're a terrible liar. But it was wonderful catching up. I didn't realize how much I missed having those kinds of conversations. Michael, about Fitzgerald? Or about roads not taken? Sarah, both. All of it. Remember that coffee shop where we used to argue about Gatsby for hours? Michael, the Grindhouse. I drove past it last week. Made me think of you. David's hands trembled. The casual intimacy of the exchange felt like walking in on something he wasn't supposed to see. He scrolled up, but the conversation began that night. Still, the ease of it suggested history, familiarity, a connection that predated him. He closed the tablet and set it down carefully, as if it might explode. Michael Chen. The name rattled around his skull. Had Sarah mentioned him before? In 20 years of marriage, had this man's name ever come up? David padded downstairs to his office, powered up his laptop, and opened a search engine. Michael Chen, Sarah's college. Results flooded the screen. A literature professor at Berkeley, published author, divorced according to his LinkedIn status updated 6 months ago. He clicked through to Facebook. Michael's profile picture showed a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes. Intelligent eyes. The kind of eyes that probably saw things David missed, appreciated things David didn't understand. His cover photo was a quote, "So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past." Gatsby. Of course. David scrolled through public posts, scholarly articles, literary criticism, photos from conferences and readings. And then, 3 weeks ago, a post that made his blood run cold. Looking forward to the old class reunion. Funny how certain people shape your life, even in their absence. Sometimes I wonder about all the parallel versions of ourselves we might have been. 17 likes. Including one from Sarah Mitchell. David sat back, his mind racing through possibilities he didn't want to consider. Sarah had known about the reunion for months. She'd mentioned it casually, asked him to keep the date free, bought a new dress. But she'd never mentioned an old boyfriend. Never said his name. Unless she had, and David hadn't been paying attention. How many of her stories had he half listened to over the years, distracted by work or sports or his own thoughts? He returned to the tablet, compulsion overriding privacy. More messages had appeared. Michael, I meant what I said earlier. You had real talent, Sarah. I still have that short story you wrote, the one about the woman who turns into a bird. Did you ever pursue writing? Sarah, life got in the way. Marriage, kids, the usual story. But sometimes I open a blank document and stare at it, wondering. Michael, it's not too late. Remember what Fitzgerald said, there are all kinds of love in the world, but never the same love twice. Sarah, I should go. David's probably wondering where I am. Michael, of course. But Sarah, I'm glad you came tonight. Really glad. Sarah, me too. The conversation ended there, but David could read volumes in those 2 words. The longing, the what-ifs, the door opening to something that should have stayed closed. He thought about Sarah downstairs at her laptop late at night, claiming to work on PTA emails or grocery lists. How many times had she been messaging Michael Chen instead? Or was this new, rekindled by proximity and nostalgia and whatever crisis was brewing beneath the surface of their marriage? David closed the tablet and sat in the darkness of his office, surrounded by the artifacts of his life, his diplomas, family photos, his daughter's crayon drawing from 5th grade that said "World's Best Dad." Everything felt suddenly fragile, like a house of cards waiting for the wrong breath of wind. He'd built his entire adult life around Sarah. She was the center, the point around which everything else revolved. His job in finance instead of teaching, because it paid better for the family they were building. Their house in the suburbs, because Sarah wanted good schools and safe neighborhoods. Even his hobbies had fallen away, sacrificed to soccer practices and parent-teacher conferences and all the machinery of family life. What had Sarah sacrificed? And had she been keeping score all along? The clock struck 3. David climbed the stairs slowly, his mind churning with questions he didn't know how to ask. In their bedroom, Sarah had rolled to his side of the bed, her hands stretched across the empty space as if searching for him in sleep. He stood there watching her, this woman he'd loved for 20 years, and wondered if he'd ever really known her at all. Morning came too quickly. David sat at the kitchen table, nursing black coffee and watching Sarah move through her routine. Yoga pants, messy bun, scrolling through her phone while the coffee maker gurgled. Ordinary domesticity that now felt choreographed, performative. "You look terrible," Sarah observed, pouring herself a cup. "Didn't you sleep?" "Work stuff," David said. "Couldn't shut my brain off." She nodded absently, already absorbed in something on her screen. He wondered if she was texting Michael Chen. The thought arrived with surprising venom. "I'm meeting Karen for lunch," she announced, gathering her purse and keys. "Then I have that gallery thing at 3. I'll probably be home around 5. "What gallery thing?" Sarah paused, and something flickered across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? "I mentioned it last week. The photography exhibit at the Morrison Gallery. You said you had that conference call anyway." David had no memory of this conversation, but that didn't mean it hadn't happened. Half their marriage felt like information passed between ships in the night. "Right," he said. "Have fun." After she left, David sat motionless, listening to the house settle around him. Their kids were both away at college now, Emma at Northwestern, Tyler at Penn State. The empty nest that was supposed to bring him and Sarah closer had instead revealed the space between them. He pulled out his phone and did something he'd never done before. He opened the Find My app. Sarah's location pulsed at the Riverside Cafe, where she'd said she was meeting Karen. Proof of honesty should have brought relief, but David felt only shame at his own suspicion. He showered, dressed, told himself he was being paranoid. But by noon, he was in his car, driving with no destination, just driving. His phone navigation somehow suggested the route to Berkeley, where Michael Chen taught. David didn't question it. He just drove. The campus was beautiful, tree-lined paths, historic buildings, students scattered across sun-drenched quads. David parked and wandered, feeling ancient and invisible among all that youth and possibility. He found the English department, climbed stairs to the 3rd floor, stood outside an office labeled Professor M. Chen. What was he doing here? What did he think he'd find? The door opened, and a young woman emerged carrying a stack of papers. Through the gap, David glimpsed Michael Chen at his desk, reading something with scholarly intensity. Up close, he looked older than his Facebook photos, lines around his eyes, reading glasses, the slight stoop of someone who spent too much time with books. "Can I help you?" the student asked, and David realized he was blocking the doorway like a stalker. "Wrong office," he mumbled, retreating down the hall. In his car, hands shaking, David called Tom, his college roommate, his best man, the friend who knew him when. "You busy?" "For you. Always. What's wrong? You sound weird. Can we grab a beer? I need to talk." They met at Hannigan's, their old spot from before kids and mortgages turned beer nights into quarterly events. Tom listened as David spilled everything, the overheard conversation, the messages, Michael Chen, his middle-of-the-night stalking through Sarah's digital life. "Jesus, David," Tom said when he finished. "That's heavy. Am I crazy? Am I making this bigger than it is?" Tom took a long pull from his beer. "Here's the thing, you're not crazy for being hurt by what she said. That would sting no matter what. But you also can't know what she meant without talking to her. She said marrying me was a mistake. She said marrying young was something she wondered about. That's different. Is it?" David's voice cracked. "And what about this Chen guy? The messages, Tom, the way they talked." "Did seem pretty friendly," Tom admitted. "But friendly doesn't mean affair. And even if there's something there, it might just be fantasy. People fantasize about WFS all the time. Doesn't mean they act on them. David stared into his beer. I drove to his office today. Like some psycho. Did you go in? No. I needed to see him, I guess. Make him real. Tom was quiet for a moment. Look, man, you've been together 20 years. That's real too. Whatever Sarah's going through, whatever she's feeling, you have history. You have kids. You have a life. That counts for something. But what if it's not enough? The question David had been avoiding finally emerged. What if she's been unhappy this whole time and I was too oblivious to notice? Then you deal with it. Together. But you can't do that if you're stalking her messages and driving to her ex's office. You have to actually talk to her. David knew Tom was right. But the thought of confronting Sarah, of hearing confirmation that their marriage was built on her regret, that terrified him more than uncertainty. His phone buzzed. Sarah's location had moved to the Morrison Gallery, exactly where she'd said she'd be. More evidence of honesty. More evidence that maybe his paranoia was the problem, not her behavior. But then another notification appeared, a new Instagram follow from Sarah's account. Michael Chen had just followed her, and she'd followed him back. Within seconds, he'd liked her last 3 posts, photos of their kids, their garden, their life. What was Michael Chen doing scrolling through pictures of David's family? What was he looking for? What did he want? Earth to David, Tom said, waving a hand in front of his face. David showed him the phone. Tom whistled low. Okay, that's a little weird, he admitted. But maybe. Don't, David interrupted. Don't tell me it's nothing. I can feel it, Tom. Something's happening. Something's already happened, or is about to happen, and I'm just standing here watching it unfold. So stop watching, Tom said firmly. Do something about it. Talk to your wife. David finished his beer, tasting nothing. What if I don't like what she says? Then at least you'll know. Isn't that better than this? David wasn't sure it was. Sometimes ignorance felt like the only thing holding his world together. David arrived home before Sarah, the empty house echoing with his footsteps. He paced the living room, rehearsing conversations in his head, each version ending in disaster. How do you ask your wife if she regrets your entire life together? The front door opened at 5:47 p.m. Sarah entered carrying a gallery pamphlet and a small wrapped package, her face flushed with that same animated energy from the reunion. You're home early, she said, hanging her keys on the hook. How was your day? We need to talk. The words came out harsher than intended. Sarah froze, her smile fading. Okay. That sounds ominous. David sat on the couch, his hands clasped between his knees. At the reunion, I overheard you talking to Lisa. Sarah's face went carefully blank. Oh. You said you regretted marrying young, that you wondered what would have happened if you hadn't. The color drained from Sarah's cheeks. She set down her package with shaking hands. David, is that how you feel? About us? About our marriage? You were eavesdropping. Her voice rose defensively. I was walking to the bar. You were having a conversation in a public space. David stood, unable to sit still. Do you know what it's like to hear your wife tell someone that marrying you was a mistake? That's not what I said. Then what did you say? Explain it to me, Sarah, because I've been trying to understand for 2 days, and I can't. Sarah sank into the armchair, her face in her hands. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. It wasn't about you. It was about me. About choices I made when I was too young to understand the consequences. I was one of those choices. You were the best choice. Sarah's voice cracked. David, I love you. I've always loved you. But that doesn't mean I don't sometimes wonder what my life would have looked like if I'd given myself time to figure out who I was before becoming someone's wife. And Michael Chen. David's voice went cold. Does he factor into these wonderings? Sarah's eyes widened. How do you? I saw the messages. On your tablet. You went through my messages. Sarah stood, anger flashing. You violated my privacy. You're messaging your ex-boyfriend in the middle of the night. He's not my ex-boyfriend. Sarah shouted. He was a friend. A teacher. Someone who believed in me when I was finding my voice. And what am I? Someone who silenced it. The question hung between them, unanswered. Sarah's silence was more damning than any admission. David felt something break inside him. Did you ever love me, Sarah? Really love me? Or was I just the safe choice, the comfortable option when you got scared of taking risks? That's not fair. Answer the question. Yes. I loved you. Sarah's tears flowed freely now. I still love you. But David, I was 23. 23. I had dreams of being a writer, of traveling, of doing something meaningful with my life. And then we got married, and you got the job in finance, and we bought the house, and suddenly I was pregnant with Emma, and all those dreams just evaporated. You never said anything. You never told me. Because you were so happy. Sarah's voice broke. You had your career, your path, everything you wanted. And I didn't want to be the ungrateful wife who complained about having a beautiful family and a good life. So I buried it. I buried me. David stared at her, seeing for the first time the truth behind 20 years of smiles. So you dug yourself back up for Michael Chen. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Explain it to me, Sarah. Make me understand why you're having intimate conversations with another man about roads not taken and Fitzgerald quotes. Sarah wiped her eyes. At the reunion, talking to people who knew me before I was a wife and mother, I remembered that person. The Sarah who wrote stories and had big ideas and wasn't afraid to fail. Michael remembered her too. That's all it is. That's not all it is. I've seen the way he looks at your photos. The way you light up when you talk about him. You're having an emotional affair, Sarah. Maybe not physical, but emotional. And sometimes that's worse. I'm not having an affair. But her voice lacked conviction. Then what do you call it when you're sharing your deepest feelings with another man? When you're building intimacy with someone who isn't your husband? When you're fantasizing about the life you could have had with him instead of me? Sarah's sob was answer enough. David moved to the window, unable to look at her. Outside, their neighbor was walking his dog. The mundane seemed surreal against their fracturing world. I've given you everything I have. My whole life has been about making you happy, making our family work. And it wasn't enough. David, please. What do you want, Sarah? He turned to face her. Really want? Because I can't compete with a ghost. I can't be someone I'm not. If you want your old dreams back, if you want Michael Chen, if you want a different life, I won't stop you. I don't want a different life. Then what do you want? Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, and couldn't answer. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, David grabbed his keys. Where are you going? Sarah's voice was small, frightened. I don't know. Somewhere I can think. Somewhere I don't have to wonder if my wife wishes I was someone else. David, wait. But he was already gone, the door closing on her outstretched hand. David drove without destination, ending up at the lake where he'd proposed to Sarah 21 years ago. The old dock was still there, weathered but standing. He sat at its edge, legs dangling over dark water, and let himself cry for the first time since his father's funeral. His phone buzzed repeatedly, Sarah calling, texting, calling again. He ignored it all, staring at the water's reflection of the moon and thinking about choices, about roads taken and abandoned, about love and its complications. Around midnight, Tom appeared, walking down the dock like a guardian angel in a windbreaker. Sarah called me, he said, sitting beside David. She's worried sick. How'd you know I'd be here? Where else would you go? This is your place. Yours and Sarah's. They sat in silence, two middle-aged men on a dock, the night alive with crickets and distant highway sounds. "I proposed to her right here," David finally said. "I had this whole speech planned about building a life together, about being partners in everything. And she said yes immediately, didn't even let me finish. I thought that meant something." It did mean something. It still does. She wishes she'd said no. Wishes she'd chosen differently. Tom sighed. "Maybe. Or maybe she's just going through something, and you're in the blast radius. Doesn't mean the marriage is over. Feels over." "David, look at me." Tom waited until David met his eyes. "I've known you both since college. I've watched you build a life together. It hasn't been perfect, whose is, but it's been real. You have two incredible kids. You've supported each other through job losses and sick parents and all the regular hell of existence. That's not nothing. But what if she's been miserable this whole time? What if I've been too oblivious to see it? Then you see it now, and you decide what to do about it." David's phone lit up again. This time, a text from Emma. "Dad, Mom says you guys had a fight. Are you okay? Call me." His daughter's worry hit him harder than Sarah's had. He thought about Emma and Tyler, about how this would affect them, about the reverberations of every choice cascading through the family they'd built. "I love her, Tom. God help me, I still love her so much it hurts." "I know you do. So what are you going to do about it?" David stared at his phone, at the missed calls, at the text from Sarah that simply said, "Please come home. Please." He stood, brushed off his jeans, and took a deep breath of lake air. "I'm going to go home. And we're going to figure this out. Together. Or we're not. But either way, I can't hide here." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "That's the right answer." David arrived home at 1 a.m. The house was dark except for one lamp in the living room where Sarah sat curled on the couch, still dressed, eyes red from crying. She stood when he entered, uncertain. "I'm sorry," they said simultaneously, then almost smiled despite everything. David sat across from her, maintaining distance but present. "I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. Are you having an affair with Michael Chen?" "No. I swear to you, no. It's just messages, just conversation." "Do you want to?" Sarah's hesitation was agony. "I don't know. Not the physical part. But the connection, the way he sees me, yes. I want that. I've missed that." The admission should have destroyed David. Instead, it cleared the air. Truth, however painful, was better than shadows. "Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy?" "Because I didn't know I was," Sarah said softly. "Or I did, but I buried it so deep I forgot it was there. Until the reunion, until I saw all these people who took chances I didn't take, lived lives I didn't live. And Michael, talking to him reminded me of who I used to be, who I might have been. Do you want to be with him instead of me?" "No. But David, I need to be someone besides just your wife and the kid's mother. I need to remember how to be myself." David absorbed this. "Then let's figure out how to do that. Together." "How? How do we fix this?" "I don't know. Therapy. Maybe. Actually talking to each other instead of living parallel lives. You pursuing things that matter to you, writing, whatever it is. And me." He paused. "Me paying attention. Really paying attention to who you are instead of who I assume you are. And Michael." David's jaw tightened. "That has to end. The messages, the connection, if we're going to try, you can't have him as your emotional backup plan." Sarah nodded slowly. "You're right. I know you're right. It's not fair to any of us." "Tell me something," David said. "That night I proposed, when you said yes immediately, did you mean it?" Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. "Yes. I loved you so much, David. I still do. I just lost myself somewhere along the way. And I don't know if I can find her again. Then let's look for her together. Not alone. Not with someone else. Together." Sarah crossed the space between them, kneeling in front of David, taking his hands. I'm scared. What if we can't fix this? Then at least we'll know we tried. But Sarah, I need you to choose. Choose us. Choose this marriage. Not because it's comfortable or safe, but because it's what you actually want. If it's not, tell me now. Sarah looked into his eyes, and David saw everything, the regret, the longing, the confusion, but also something else. Recognition. Memory. 20 years of shared history, of inside jokes and finished sentences, of building a life brick by brick. I choose us, she whispered. I choose you. Not because you're safe. Because you're my home. And I don't want to lose that. They held each other then, crying together in the dark living room, two people who'd almost lost each other learning how to hold on. The weeks that followed weren't easy. They started couples therapy with Dr. Rodriguez, who taught them to actually communicate instead of assuming. Sarah blocked Michael Chen's number after one final message explaining her choice. She joined a local writing group and began working on a novel, her own story, finally told. David cut back his hours, prioritized date nights, learned to ask how are you, and actually wait for the real answer. Some days were harder than others. Some days, David still wondered if Sarah was thinking about Michael Chen, about roads not taken. Some days, Sarah still felt the loss of that parallel life she'd never live. But they were facing it together now. Not perfect, not always easy, but together. On their 21st anniversary, David took Sarah back to the lake. Same dock, same moonlight, different people standing on it. I would choose you again, he told her. Every time, every version, every life. You know that, right? Sarah smiled, the genuine smile he'd fallen in love with all those years ago. I know. And David? I would choose you too. Not despite everything, but because of it. Because this life, our life, is the one I want to keep living. They stood there together, watching moonlight dance on water, two people who'd almost lost each other and decided to stay. It wasn't the fairy tale ending they'd imagined at 23. It was better, earned, chosen, real. Behind them, their house waited with its lights on, a beacon in the darkness. Not perfect, but theirs. Not what they'd dreamed, but what they'd built. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.